Hello, Mr. Montalvo here, US History, and today we're taking a look at Unit 3, Lesson 3, Day 1, in which we take a look at the amending of the Constitution, or how the Constitution was designed to be amended, focusing on that ability to change over time. So our objective for today is to examine the process for amending the Constitution. And in addition to that, we're going to examine the changes to the New York State Constitution and how they were made during the 19th century. Now, below is a quote from Patrick Henry, the same person who is quoted in his speech, "Give me liberty or give me death." So he might be familiar, hopefully. The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests. This all goes back to the issues between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, some of which we'll be discussing today. That idea that the Federalists were advocating for the fact that this new Constitution, while it was creating a central or national or strong federal government, at the same time, it was providing guarantees for individuals and safeguards against the rise of a tyrannical leader. So constitutional change in New York State is defined in Article 19 of the Constitution, which provides for change through amendment or revision. Both may occur by legislative action or through the calling of a constitutional convention by the people of the state. And once again, for the next few minutes, we're going to be discussing New York State Constitution, the New York State Constitution, so please keep that in the back of your head. Amendments are focused on particular changes, and revisions are widespread or overall changes. Those are the differences. The amendment of New York State Constitution through the legislature requires the passage of a proposed change by two consecutive elective legislatures. So this process takes time. We have to go through two entire legislative cycles, which takes about 8 years. And the ratification by the voters in a general election. So even though the legislature can initiate the change or revision, at the annual election hosted in which the people of the state have final say. Now, conventions have been provided for and by the New York State Constitution since 1846, which the question, shall there be a convention to revise the Constitution and amend the same, appearing on the ballot every 20 years, or at such a time that the legislature may provide by law. Now that goes back to that process as we discussed before. But every 20 years, there's the guarantee of a vote in which we just experienced, 2017 being that 20th year. And on the right, you can see the process by which it could have taken. Fast forward to 2020, the majority of voters in New York voted no, so there was no constitutional convention. But it is a lengthy process that could have gone all the way to April 2nd, 2019. So if a majority of voters actually voting on the amendment approves it, it becomes part of the Constitution on January 1st of the following year. Now let's see how this compares to the United States Constitution. So the framers, or the architects, or the writers of the Constitution wanted it to change as the times change, that idea of being elastic, that idea of being amendable over time. And so they created within it the amendment process. An amendment must be proposed in one of two ways, and the graph here provides a visual of what I'm discussing right now. So the proposal, a constitutional amendment can be proposed in one of two ways, by either 2/3 of the members of both the House and the Senate, or a convention called by 2/3 of the states. So either one of these can happen in order for it to happen. And then it moves to the ratification process or the approval process. As ratification, after an amendment is proposed, it must be ratified, signed, or approved. And this can be done in one of two ways. One, by 3/4 of the state legislatures, or by 3/4 of ratifying conventions in each individual state. So there are two different formats for this to follow. So next, the amendment must be ratified, as we mentioned, by 3/4 of the states. They must vote for the amendment before it becomes part of the United States Constitution. Now, the first 10 amendments to be approved were called the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights were added to the United States Constitution primarily to protect citizens from excessive powers of the federal government. It was made after the fact and attached to the document to kind of ease the minds of many people who were against the Constitution and scared that it gave too much power to the government. So, as such, the Bill of Rights guarantees those safeguards of basic rights that are provided to individual students, protecting them from the government. And we have discussed this in a previous lesson, but I just want to break down some of the common trends within the amendments. So Amendment 1 guarantees the freedom of religion, speech, press, petition, and assembly. Assembly, the right to gather. Amendment 2 and 3 prevents Congress from forcing citizens to quarter or house troops in their homes. Amendment number 2, once again, securing the rights for citizens to bear arms, particularly firearms or weapons to protect themselves and to create militia. Amendment 5 through 8. So this protects citizens accused of crimes and brought to trial. Every citizen has the right to due process, the right to a fair trial. Due process means the government must follow the same rules in all cases brought to trial, no matter who is being tried. Among these rules are the right to a trial by jury, the right of being defended by a lawyer, even in the event that you cannot afford one, and the right to a speedy trial. So you can't be held in prison for excessive amounts of times while you wait for your trial to be heard. So the amendment process. It's once again proposed by Congress by 2/3, a vote of each house, the upper house and the lower house, or proposed by national convention called by Congress at the request of 2/3 of the state legislature. So the federal government can initiate it and the state governments individually can initiate the amendment process. Ratified by legislatures in 3/4 of states or ratified by conventions in those individual states and having 3/4 of those states in agreement. So today I want you to take a look at a comparison between Hamilton and Jefferson that's going to take us both from today and tomorrow. So this part 1 is taking a look at both of the individuals and their beliefs on the creation of a national bank. Now Hamilton and Jefferson are going to play a very important role in the first presidency of the United States, that of George Washington, which we'll be discussing in the next class. So providing this foundation will really help understand the material that we're going to be discussing moving forward. So please take a look at that. That will be linked below. In addition, just in closing, your exit ticket for today, try to identify and explain what you seem to find the most difficult part of the amendment process. It is a lengthy process. It is a very detailed process. So which part of it do you think would be the most difficult to achieve based on what you've put together so far? And that's it for today. Thank you.